Hi, welcome to Diving into Deep Waters. I am your host, Erin Rowling, and I thought it seemed fitting to start off with some Abigail stories because it's been a little while. I almost said Abidocious because that's her new name on the back of her shirt for volleyball. So they have these little pet names that they do, which are lots of fun. Last year they put Gail, and no offense to any Gales out there, but not my favorite name, and I did not name her Gail. So not sure where that one came from. Mama was not happy. So this year she did Abidocious, and Paul's like, why didn't you Abidabadoo? And then she was like, I don't know. And then I was like, why didn't you do Absters? Because that's actually what I call her. And so she's set for the next 3 years of volleyball of having her names. So we've already have them picked up for her. So no one calls her Gail. Blah. Anyways, so it's so funny because, sometimes your kids go through things, and I've shared with you some of the things that I've struggled with as a mom with Abby as far as like her height and just I was just talking to someone the other day. I said, some things your kids go through and you can just kiss it and you can make it all better and it's just great. And then as they get older, you get into these waters of you just can't, wave your magic wand and make things better. And that is a very hard position as a parent to be in those spaces. And so we kind of had this moment happen, and she had to go for her physical for volleyball. And it was funny because before we went, we've debated, her and Joseph measured each other, which I should have known. If you listen to the story about the couch, you will know that my kids don't know how to measure. So when they measured the couch, they also measured each other apparently. And they were like, we don't think we're 6'2". We're not even sure we're 6'1". And I'm like, man, that's really weird because I'm pretty sure that they are. But, maybe they're not, which made me start to really question myself because we had sent out all this stuff saying she's 6'2". So it was kind of nerve-wracking because I'm like, are we lying? What is going on? But I should not have worried because I should know my kids cannot measure. So we were helping Amanda recently move into her new apartment, and the first thing my kids said when they saw her is like, she grew, Mom. And I was like, I don't think so. And when you're around your kids all the time, you don't always see these kinds of things. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think she grew. And they're like, no, Mom, she definitely grew. So when we went for her physical, I'm like, oh, they're going to measure her. The problem is the last time they measured her, the nurse was way too short and she did not measure her properly. So she wasn't able to get the thing above her head the way that she was supposed to. So I was like, I really hope we don't have another situation like this because I really need to know. Like I couldn't measure her myself at home. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I could have done that. But I don't know. I was waiting for her physical. So she goes to measure her, and she says she is 74.5 inches tall. Now, a smarter person would not have to look it up, but I did. I had to look it up. And so she is 6 feet 2 inches and a half. So she is definitely 6'2" and over 6'2". But here's the really cool moment that happened because I looked it up and I told her, I said, Abby, you're 6'2" and a half. And I said, you might hit 6'3". Like, how cool would that be? And she looked at me and she said, let's go for 6'4". We might as well while we're at it. You guys, my heart just about exploded because we've gone through all of these things of negative comments and her crying about her height to her being like, hey, let's keep going while we're at it. Not that we have any ability to make that happen, but to see the growth and the confidence in her, my mama's heart was just swelling so much. And here's the thing, it's a lot of people that are around her that are just speaking a lot of life into her. And you'll all know who you are. And I so appreciate it because we've gotten to the point where height is not an issue and she's very confident with it. And I don't know. I just had to share that with you because sometimes like you watch your kids go through things and you just struggle. And first of all, enlist your community, enlist your enlist your what's the word I'm looking for? Not tribe, maybe tribe. Your words are coming, not coming actually. Your village. There you go. And tell your village like, hey, we need to speak this in, and we can make a difference. And different voices than the mama's voice sometimes really make a difference. So I just had to share that with you. Here's something a little bit funny with her physical as well, because here, like, I'm like, we're gonna get your physical, be done. And that child was so incredibly stressed out because of her vision. And I have shared her vision with you, and that her left eye does not have great vision. She has about 5% vision in it. And so she was just like, they're gonna not believe me that I can't see. And sure enough, the nurse was like, well, can you just read? What can you read? And Abby goes, the E, which I am 1,000% sure that child just memorized that there's an E. I mean, who doesn't know that there isn't an E there? So I did look at the paperwork, and it said her vision in her left eye was a 20 out of 200. Again, don't know what that means. So I thought, I will look it up. It means she's legally blind in her left eye. So, which is so crazy to me, because my other daughter also blind in her right eye. And it's just crazy to me, their talent with sports and their ability, because they overcome the whole being able to actually depth perception kind of thing. And they're just both really have been really good at sports. And it is not because they can see well. So it's just kind of, I don't know, kind of cool, overcoming obstacles. And I don't know, it was just funny how worried she was, and the literal relief that came off of her face when they were like, okay, let's just move on. So but anyways, yeah, so we're in volleyball season. I'm gonna just keep going with Abby for a little bit. And so they did tryouts, and Abby was on varsity as a freshman last year. It was so cool. It was so exciting. She had an amazing opportunity to be on that team. That team was a well-oiled machine. They were good. They taught Abby a lot. They went to state. At state, they lost to the team who won state. So they did so amazing. And so going into this next year, though, it's a rebuild year for us. But very excited. Actually, tonight is the first game, so I'm so excited. It's like, we love volleyball season. It's so much fun. But she had tryouts. The first day, she was like, I don't think I did very well. I didn't feel good about it. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, do you think I'm going to make the team? Do you think I'm going to make varsity? Which I replied, because I thought she was joking. I said to her, Abby, are you being serious? And she said, yeah, I'm being serious. Do you think I'm going to make the team? And I said, yes, I do think you're going to make the team. But if you're worried about it, you need to give it your all, and you need to try your very hardest. And she was like, yeah, I know. I know, because I really want to make the team. And I was like, I already know she's going to make the team. But hey, it's good to not just think you have something. That's a good quality. So we go through tryouts, and she calls me because the girls wanted to go to Chinese. I guess Chinese buffets are the thing for 15-year-old girls. If you didn't know, now you know. It's the thing. They love a good Chinese buffet, apparently. So they're going out for Chinese buffet. She calls me with her friends, and she tells me first all the girls that made varsity, so excited for her friends. And then she said, oh, and by the way, I made the team and I made captain. She's one of the captains. I was like, from a girl who was worried about getting on varsity to being a captain, I think you're good, Abby. But it was so sweet. And then the first day of practice, she comes home. She walks in the door, and I always ask her, like, how was practice? How did you feel like you did? What can you work on? Whatever. And she says to me, she's like, walks in, Mom, I yelled, go, to one of the girls. I said, that's okay, Abby. It's all right. She goes, one day on the job of being captain, and I already messed it up. So was like, honey, I think you're fine. I think you're okay. The way that a 15-year-old brain works, you guys, you can't even begin to understand it. So that's some Abby updates for you. Hopefully bring a little smile to your face. Also just encourage you, if you're in a parenting season where you can't wave that magic wand to make things better for your kids, just keep speaking life. Get your village together, speak life, and eventually they will believe what is true. So just want to encourage you in that. Moving on to my son leaving for college. You guys, a friend sent me a picture of a mom. It was captioned, she was mom with wearing sunglasses with tissue stuffed under her sunglasses, and it said how you take your kid to college. Yeah, it's pretty right on. I'm not gonna lie. I actually have my Kleenex here because I'm not sure how I'm gonna make it through this podcast. Maybe I'm gonna be fine. Maybe I'll surprise myself, but I just saw another mom who dropped her daughter off of college. It's her first kid going to college. Joseph's our third, but it's her first. It doesn't matter if it's your first, your second, or your 10th. You guys, you cry all the same. You're gonna cry. But she said, don't ask me about it because I'll just start crying. And I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. If I start thinking about it too much, I start crying. So, but I I don't know. I wanted to it's kind of funny because I did a podcast when Liz went to college. So I'm just going to document all my kids going to college so they can listen to how their mom felt when they left for college. But yeah, it just does. It just seems like the other day we were packing up Liz and taking her. Now it's Joseph's turn. And I don't know, like I said, you just can never prepare yourself right. You think that you can. You think that it's going to be easier, that it's not going to be as hard. And I just keep asking myself, why is this so hard to do? Why is this so difficult to have your kid leave your home? It's just, I don't know. It's a bizarre place to be in. And I don't know, like Paul's like so excited for him and Ben like, this is good, this is amazing, and all of these things. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes, and I am like, I'm super happy for him, but at the same time, it's such a struggle. And I will say though, the other day, Paul and I were talking, I was like, how are you doing? Like, how are you actually doing? He was like, honestly, it's been very emotional. So it actually made me feel a little bit better that he is emotional for this as well. But here's what I want to say, because this is I'm just going to tell you what's been sticking out to me as I process this, as I go through this. And here's the thing that keeps popping into my head is that hard things produce good things. I'll say it again for the people in the back, because hard things produce good things. As hard as this process has been, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat it, it's been really hard. I have seen God, I have witnessed God's hand all over it. So despite the hardness of it, I have seen God just so present, which makes the hard not so hard. Again, I don't feel like it's one of those things. I mean, God's our Father, right? And he wants good things for his kids. But it's one of those things where he can't just he's not going to wave a magic wand and make it all better for us. And I think in some ways I wanted him to, if I'm being honest. I just felt like, okay, I feel the emotions. And I didn't even write this part down. I feel like as I've been processing this, I just want him to wave a wand and just be like, okay, I have no feelings. This is bad that it's hitting me this early. And he's not going to do that, because just like I couldn't do that for Abby, that's not me trying to make a situation better for her, doesn't help her learn her worth, right? She needed to learn her worth. She needed to learn that being tall is a gift. It is. I mean, she loves volleyball. It's a gift in volleyball. It gives her an advantage and for a lot of different reasons. And it's how God created her. And even sending my son to college, as much as I want him to wave that magic wand, I would not be learning what I'm learning through this process. And it's so valuable. The hard adds value. It's, I don't know, it just begins to help us as we process things to what I think one of the biggest things I've seen through this, and we've talked about setups, but I've seen how God has set up things in order to help me process it and value the setups and value his presence. Now I got to find out where I'm back in my notes because that was all just a sidebar. And here's the thing. Maybe you're like, I'm going to check out because I'm not sending my kid to college, or I don't have a kid, or that's not the stage I'm in. Here's the thing. Everybody has a hard. Everybody goes through something that is difficult. So my hard right now of sending my son to college may not be anywhere close to what your hard is. But you have something, 99.9% of you have something you're walking through that is very difficult. And I want to use this podcast to encourage you that the hard will produce good things. It will add value to you in the long run. And more than anything, I pray that by doing this podcast, if you're in a hard season or whatever your heart is, that you value the presence of God, that you acknowledge it, that you see it, and that you say, okay, this has been hard, but look at all of the ways that God has shown up for me. And because I have seen that through this process, and I pray that that's something that you can take away from it. It's interesting to me because when you do send your kid off to college, you've questioned everything you've done as a mother. Like, there's so many things that you begin to think, did I teach them that? Did I teach them that? I'm not sure they know how to do that. Do you know how to do this? And actually, at one point, I told Joseph, I said, you can just text me and ask me, because he was kind of asking me a lot of questions. And I was like, I felt a little overwhelmed. I'm like, you're never going to remember all these things. So just text me. As things come up, you can text me, which he has texted me a couple times, and it makes me feel very good, just saying. But you would just begin to think, like, what things did I miss? Because you realize you definitely missed a lot of things. Like, you should have taught them, or discussions you should have had. You almost kind of want to, a friend and I talked about this, like, you almost want to turn back the clock and, like, go back to a certain point, be like, okay, now that I know that I didn't teach them that, I, like, want to go back and teach them those things and, like, change time if you could. But here's the harsh reality. You can't. You can't go back and you can't change anything. And you are where you are. But this is where you just have to begin to trust on so many levels that they will survive. I just keep telling myself that. He's going to survive. Because here's the thing. I survived. I think back to the same age that Joseph is. I actually moved countries. I lived in Africa and I moved back to the United States by myself. And I survived. So my son is 2 hours away. He's going to survive. It's all going to be okay. And like I said, I just kind of want to point out some of the things that I've seen God set up for me as I process all of this, like the God winks, if you will, through the process. And the first setup that I kind of saw happen was realizing that I wasn't in this alone. I often think when we go through hard things, we convince ourselves that we're the only ones experiencing this. We're the only ones who've ever gone through this. And that's not true. And what was interesting is, first of all, a lot of people have gone through sending their kids to college. I've gone through it myself. But here I am, like, I don't know, almost maybe worse than the first time. And there's some reasons for that, and I'll get into that. But maybe because he's my only son, I don't know. But what's interesting to me is that God just began to show me, Erin, you're not alone in this. And actually, two of my friends sent their sons off. One sent her son to college. My other friend sent her son to the military, which if I I've not ever sent a kid into the military, but I'm imagining it's much harder than sending your kid to college. Because my son I can text, my son I can talk to and stuff like that. My friend is waiting on pins and needles for a letter from her son and like stalking Facebook because they take pictures of the infantries and like trying to find her son. Like she's got it even more than I do. But I just right off the bat, I just thought, I felt like the Lord just said, you're not doing this alone, Erin. And whatever your heart is, you're not in it alone. Either someone's been through it or someone is currently going through it. And I think that's why it's so good to be real and honest with people, because you could be sharing with someone and they'll be like, you know what, I'm going through exactly the same thing. And you can work it. Someone just recently was going through something devastating and they talked to another person who's going through exactly the same thing. And they just sat on the phone and cried with each other because they both knew exactly what they were going through. They didn't have to like explain what they felt or anything like that. They were just able to say, hey, we both know what we're going through. And that is, I feel like, a setup from God in the best possible way of saying, like, here's someone who also knows what you're feeling. And here's someone who's been there and can tell you what they did to get through it. So that was kind of the first thing that I saw. Another one I didn't see until we dropped Joseph off. Our daughter Elizabeth had come home, Elizabeth, and she was in a wedding in the weekend and she wanted to see her brother off. So she said, I'm going to come home. And then she took the day off work, which we were all super excited. We love when Elizabeth comes home. It's just, she makes us all really happy. And so she's been here and, went with us to drop him off. I think it was harder for her than she thought it was going to be. It was really, really sweet to see her just stand in the doorway and kept saying, bye, bye, bye. Okay, Joseph, bye. Like you could tell it was just so hard for her. I mean, she kind of has a mama's heart in the fact of like she's very protective over and always over Joseph. She'd say we scarred her with that because we made her watch him when she was younger. But it's turned into this beautiful thing of protection. You're welcome, Elizabeth. But it was really, really sweet. But when we were leaving, and which I will just say, like, I'll get to that in a second, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So when we were leaving, we're walking away, and I just thought, I kept putting in my head, how hard is it going to be to drop him off? And we walk away with one kid. We're going to go home and it's just going to be one kid. We've gone from 4 down to 1. Like, how is my heart going to be? How am I going to handle this? And it was just like the Lord just was like, hey, you don't have to go home with one kid. You've got Liz for another couple days. And the buffer that put on my heart, I can't even explain to you. It was like, Lord, thank you for knowing that was going to be such a gift. She was going to be a gift, not just to me, but to Abby, who was coming home and being the only sibling at home. She was just so thankful to have her sister there. They even slept together. Abby slapped her in the face while they were sleeping. It was great. No, but just that setup again of God saying, like, I know this is going to be hard, but here's a little buffer. And I don't know if you can look into your heart and see what has God put in place. That I'm not saying like you're not going to feel things. Trust me, I'll feel things. But it was a little easier. Because there was just a buffer. It was like just a little protection where I didn't feel like my entire heart was breaking. It was just like, thank you, Lord. And I would just encourage you, whatever your heart is, look for that little buffer. What is the Lord putting in place that just makes it a little easier. And it's just the kindness and goodness of God to say, I'm going to make this just a little bit easier of a process. Now, um, it's funny because I knew I was going to cry, but he set up a time for me to cry. Now, I know that sounds weird, okay? And not just like a cry, like a breakdown cry. Because I cried, like I'd get emotional and stuff like that, but I hadn't had like my breakdown cry. And I was nervous about doing that in front of my son because he's not a super emotional person. And do you want to leave your kid at college and you're sobbing? I've done that actually with Amanda. I did that. I think I sobbed more in the car when I got to the car with Elizabeth. And Joseph was really trying, and I was worried about Abby's feelings and Paul's feelings and Liz's feelings. So I was kind of worried about everyone else's feelings. But I also felt like I really needed a good, solid cry. Do you ever feel like that? You just need a good, solid cry. Get it out of your system, and it'll just kind of make you feel better. Well, the Lord even set that up for me. The day that we took Joseph to college, we were, my friend Carmen has a workout class and I wasn't going to go. And then I was just like, you know what? I need to be with my girls. We have like this family and community in the class. And I just need to maybe she'll do a song with some punching and I can get some emotions out and everything. And I was like, hey, you might see me crying in class. It's, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And so I did really good, like through the whole class. And then we get to the last part where we stretch. And my friend always plays like a Christian song. Usually someone's crying during this part of it because there's something about exercising and then just like stretching. And I don't know how that all works. I'm sure there's some scientific thing there, but especially when you're like listening to a song about God, it's just like, you close your eyes, you can just think about him, meditate on him. Probably my favorite part of class. And she just added another song, so she kind of extended it. So it's amazing. But anyways, we get there to the stretch, and what song does she pick but The Blessing, which I'm sure you've heard of it. It basically comes out of the prayer of the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, give you peace. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. So as soon as it starts playing, I'm like, okay, this is not probably going to work out too well for me. This is probably going to be the moment. But I got through some of it. And then before I knew it, I was just a blubbering mess, just probably ugly crying, just couldn't even move. I mean, I couldn't do any of the stretches. I just kind of put my face down and started sobbing. And a friend came over, put her arm around me, to just kind of held me. And I just realized when I was done that I just was so thankful that God had set up a time even to cry, a time to just take in what I needed to take in and let out what I needed to let out. And it was such a safe place. Like he provided a safe place for me to do that. Wasn't a place where I felt like I had to, like I could be snotty and it was okay. Like that's a gift to be able to be in a space where you can just be a blubbering mess. That's why I love church. And I lead worship, so I really can't be a blubbering mess, but I'm safe to be a blubbering mess. Like our congregation has made it safe for even when I have those moments, that it's safe to do that. And I love, if you're going through something hard, where is the safe place that you can be? And guess what? It may not even be with people, but you can always find a safe place with God. Always. There have been things that I have walked through that are really hard that no one else knew about. But I knew I could go in my bedroom, close the door, get on my face, and be a blubbering mess, and I was safe with Jesus. It's okay. It's actually, I think it's good for us. Because in that moment, he doesn't leave us or forsake us. He's there. He's there to walk through that hard thing with us. Even to get a good cry, he is there. I did I did cry when I dropped Joe off, but like I said, I was kind of worried about everybody else. And so we had come down from his room. I needed to pee, of course. And I just felt like I needed to see him one more time and not with anybody else. And so I looked at Paul and I said, "Can I please run up back up there?" And he said, "Of course, go ahead." And I ran up there and I just hugged him. And then I kind of lost it. But it's just, yeah, just loved on him for a second. And that's when the sunglasses came in handy. And I I walked out. My kids kept saying, "Are you okay?" And I just couldn't even answer anybody. I just walked. I just was like, "Where's the car? Let's go." Like I need to get there. And cuz there's people all over the place. And um the thing is the heart can sometimes be something we're not expecting to. Like I thought the hardest part was going to be dropping him off. And honestly, I think some of the hard was like worrying, like, who's he going to eat with? um, who is he going to make friends with? Is he going to find a church? Is he going to get along with his roommate? The list goes on and on and on. And the thing is, when we dropped our girls off, we felt a lot of peace. The college that they went to was a Christian college, and not that everybody was acting all Christian, okay? But there was a difference in dropping our son off at a secular college when we were walking through campus. I mean, you could just feel the world, if you will, if that makes sense. And I did not sleep that night. Paul and I were both struggling. And I had a lot of conversations with God, which, feel free to do that too in your heart. Have your conversations. And at that time, just a lot of second guessing our decisions. Should he be going to college there? Is he going to be all right? Did we make the right decision? And it's so funny because God can just use anything, right? And he used Facebook of all things. Yes, God can use Facebook. And he used it. I ended up reading this article and I shared it with Paul. And he was like, "Yeah, okay, that helps." Because sometimes it's just in your heart, you can get so focused on what is hard that you lose the perspective of actually what's being accomplished. And in my heart of dropping my son off, I lost focus of like, what does God want to accomplish in my son during this time of him being away? And this article just kind of brought that all back into play. And I would just encourage you in your heart, don't lose perspective or focus on what is God trying to accomplish through the heart at that moment. Because when you are willing to get out of yourself and get out of your pity party, out of your why God, or what, any of those things, when you're willing to do that and you're able to do that, you don't feel so much of the pressure of the heart. I'm not saying it goes away. Yes, I'm still concerned today, even though I've gone through this process, I'm still worried about him. But it's not the weight. It felt like such a weight. And I'll just share this. It may be a little bit more for people releasing their kids, but I just thought it was so good because the article talked about that there's a time, and honestly with kids, I feel like there's many times. It's not just a one-time deal of letting go, but where in our children's lives where we have to put the basket in the water, that we have to let go and trust God has plans and purposes for them. And listen, this is incredibly scary. I mean, I mean, I it's kind of like, I don't know. I wonder if a mother bird, when she pushes her child out of the nest, does she think, "I'm not a bird, so I don't know, and I don't know what kind of thoughts birds have," but does she think, they push them out and they're supposed to fly, but what if they don't fly? Like, it's like, yeah, I put my kid in the basket to go off. What if he drowns? Like, what if they don't make it? I mean, that's a real fear that us as parents have. But it said this, it said, but we have to remember that we have to let go so that God can draw them from the water for his great purposes. Oof. I'll just read it again, maybe for myself, okay? We have to remember that we have to let go so that God can draw them from the waters for his great purposes. That spoke so significantly. And I thought about Moses's mom. We often know her as Moses's mom, kind of thing, but she had a name, Jochebed. And just think about it. She built a basket and she put her son in it and she left it there. The worry, the fear that must have overcame her of like, now that's a real like, will he drown? I mean, he could legitimately drown. Is he going to survive? Is he going to be okay? And here's the thing, she trusted. She trusted God. She trusted that he had his hand on Moses, that by her doing that would lead him into his purposes. She didn't put him in there to die. Trust me, no mother would have done that. But she put him in there with faith, and then she released him to what God's had in store for him. My husband shared something with me that made me so emotional during church. I almost had another breakdown during church when he was saying this, because he shared about how he had been wrestling with letting our son go, and he began to pray this prayer. And the prayer was, God, I've done what I can. I've done all that I can. Now, can you do the rest? Do what I can't do, God. My husband's like, I didn't say exactly like that. Well, it's close. Here's the thing. I don't know what your heart is. Maybe it's not taking your kid to college, or them moving from home, or sending them to preschool or kindergarten or school in general. It's hard to send our kids to school too. I've had a hard day every day that my kids go to school. I kind of just mope around. I'm just going to be honest. Or like I said, maybe nothing to do with a kid at all. My prayer is that you find him in the midst of your heart, that you find those little setups that he does for you. Because when you notice those things, as I was writing out this podcast, my heart was so encouraged. We sang a song, like I said, The Blessing. We sang it at church over our teachers and our students and our coaches and everything. And there's a part in there that says, he is for you. He is for you. He is for you. And you begin to just repeat it and repeat it. He is for you, because maybe you got to tell yourself 1,000 times, he is for me. He is for me. And he is for you. In the midst of your heart, he is for you. He is doing these little setups for you to cry or to process or to buffer. He's going to get the very best out of us. And we can go through the hard and just be like, that was the most horrible experience I've ever been through. Or we can go through the hard and say, man, God taught me a lot. And I saw the evidence of his hand working in my life. I saw the setups, God. Praise him for the setups. And as you do that, as you get out of your little, is me. This is hard. I hate it. I don't want to be here. Which, go ahead and have that moment, but then get past it. And say, but these are the things that God is adding value to me. God is teaching me things. He's growing me. Oh, it's okay not to like the hard, but don't stay in a place of not liking it. Ask the Lord, show me the setups. Maybe write out what's happening to you, and then you'll be like, oh wow, he did that. Oh, he did that. Oh, I never thought of that. And I invite you to pray the prayer that my husband said, because releasing whatever you need to release in the midst of your hard, because usually it requires us to release something, hard things that we go through. We have to surrender things before Him. And you don't have to do this by yourself. Like I said before, like I am not going through this by myself. I have people walking it through with me, but you don't have to carry this burden by yourself. You don't have to go through the hard by yourself. So just pray this prayer. Say, God, I've done all that I can do. Now please do what I can't. And you know what? He will. I love you. I praying for you that are going through something hard right now. I know a lot of you are praying for me. I thank you from the depths of my heart. And we are going to grow and have value added to us through the process.